Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video, and today's the day you've all been hoping, praying and waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here to discuss a Rangers rumour about a guy who puts the ball into the back of the net. By goodness gracious, great balls of fire, Rangers are linked with a striker. Tears in my eyes. Now, as always, this is just at the rumour stage, people, and when it is at that stage, we will not only look at the rumour, we'll look at the player, and we'll look at the potential transfer fee, which will be very interesting regarding this video, so stay tuned for that bit. As always, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to reach 60k, so if you could help us out, that would be greatly appreciated by either subscribing if you're new, or if you've already done that, please consider hitting that like button. It definitely helps the channel on our way. But if you'd rather wait to see if this video is worth it, and a like for that is completely fine. Let's go ahead and try to earn that like then, shall we? And as always, we will start by kicking the old tyres and seeing what we're actually being linked with. And as always, we'll start off with the old player profile himself, Mr. Dessers, or Big Des as I'll probably call him if he does sign on the dotted line, is a 6'1", 28-year-old Belgian-born midfielder, but a Nigerian internationalist who, in the nicest way possible, shows you by his build what type of player he actually is. And again, I mean that in the nicest way, ladies and gentlemen, because he's a big laddie who uses his physicality to his strength. He excels in using his back to goal, wrestling with defenders and throwing people out the way. He's no quick, he's no the rapid, he's no the pace burning down the left hand side or right hand side. He's not going to spin a defender and run away from him that way. Nah, that's just no who he is. But his strength is his biggest asset, along with the old skill. But the majority of the things we've talked about so far, people, is obviously opening the door for which is the most obvious comparison in the world. I'm talking about a laddie who uses his body, who's better with his back to goal, bringing others into play using his strength. Where have we heard and seen that before over the last 5 years, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, I'm bringing Alfredo Morelos comparisons right away, because on paper, people, they start to clear some of that smoke out your eyes so you can see what type of player this guy is. There is a hell of a lot of similarities in terms of how they play and how they go about their business, which is why, for me, there is something in this Rangers rumour, because if there's a Michael Beale striker out there, it's Big Desser in that aspect. However, there is a couple key differences between Morelos and Desser, and that's, of course, his size and how he uses it a little bit differently to Morelos, because where Morelos is a bit like a bull in a china shop, you know what I mean, he's all power all the time, throwing this, Big Desser's actually got a lot more skill and technique to his game, and it's something that's very rare when you are that physical, when you are that type of player that puts himself about like that. You've not really always got the touch or the skill and the creativity, but he's got that, and that's how he opens a lot of doors, ladies and gentlemen. It's not only the strength that he brings in, it's the quick turn on either feet, it's the quick feet and being so comfortable on either opens up real possibilities to hurt teams, whether that is for himself, creating an opportunity out of nothing against a packed defence, if you will, or being able to be clever enough to spin a man and set someone up, which he's done a hell of a lot in his career, and we'll touch on that more in terms of the old stats and numbers. But to finish up, I couldn't help but find another comparison of another player who's maybe in a wee bit the elder style. Do you remember Daniel Cousins? Do you remember how he was so big but he was so technically gifted, and sometimes he would turn it on and the way he would flip the ball left and right would make defenders look silly and put them on skates? Well, that's very similar to what this guy brings, and if he does come up to the road to Rangers, I hope he's a lot more consistent than Big Cousins was in terms of that, because when Cousins was on, Big Daniel could do it, people, but it was just actually getting him there, and that's going to be an interesting talking point as we get further into the video. But big, powerful, plays with his back to goal, bring others into play, but he's very technical gifted, and that's how he pulls away and creates his own opportunities. Again, he's not a pace merchant, ladies and gentlemen. He's never going to burn anybody that way, but his clever technique is what creates an opportunity, and for me, suits him more maybe to the Scottish game. Yes, it's not a sexy name, or yes, it's no sexy stuff that I'm talking about, but what do we play? Nearly 99.9% of the weeks in the SPFL, 2 banks of 5, loads of people in the box. Where does this guy excel? With his back to goal against defenders, creating a half yard. It almost fits too perfectly if you look at it that way. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't just talk around the player. Let's start getting into some numbers and stats then, shall we? Because again, not only is that a number and stat generation, but whenever you're linked with a striker, that's where we want to go. We want to know if he's prolific. We want to know what he brings to his business. So as always, we'll start off with his most recent season of football, in which he played 32 games in all competitions, scoring 10 goals and grabbing 3 assists, meaning he obviously had 13 goal contributions in 32 games, which again isn't the biggest eye-popping stats and making you say, wait a minute, CJ, that isn't great. But as always, we like to go a wee bit deeper here into the channel and give you the real information that's actually out there. That season, 32 games, 10 goals and 3 assists, was played on just 50% being in the starting 11 and only playing 47% of the minutes available. When you start to look at that, ladies and gentlemen, and see, despite only being in the starting 11 50% of the time, despite only playing 47% of the minutes available, he was still responsible for 22% of the goal contributions that club scored in the entire season, which is actually very impressive, especially when you consider it is in the top flight of Italian football, who I know people's got this and this and this to say, but it is a tough league in its own right. So for me, I think when you put all the cards on the table, his season of getting a goal or assist every 3 games in the circumstances with the bounty of minutes and the starts that he did get is actually pretty impressive. But if I'm honest with you people, it's not been his most impressive season in terms of output, because again he scored just 6 league goals over in the Serie A. But pulling away from that, looking at his season before, that's when he started to make his name, and that's when he started to get the praise, and that's when he earned that €6.5 million move to the Serie A just last summer. It was because of what he was doing the season before when he was on loan to Feyenoord, where he had an absolutely sensational season in front of goal, especially in European football at the Conference League level for Feyenoord, as he went ahead and scored 10 goals and grabbed 2 assists in 13 games, being one of the most important and maybe the biggest reason why Feyenoord made it all the way to the actual final. He scored big goals versus Slavia Prague, which we're always happy to see them getting beat, and he also scored 2 massive goals versus Marseille and what was a very heavily fancied Marseille side to make it to the final. He was one of the biggest reasons Feyenoord made it to there, and unfortunately they just came up just short in the competition as they lost to the special ones Roma side, who, if you paid attention, just made it all the way to the Europa League final the season later. So I don't think we're going to be too critical on the laddie for not making sure they come across the old special one. He knows what he's doing and knows how to nullify certain amounts of players. But his 2022 season was absolutely, or 2021 to 2022 season, sorry, was where people really started talking to this lad and said, wait a minute, there's something there. And to finish that season probably fairly, we'll look at his entire season. He played 46 games in all competitions that year for Feyenoord, in which he scored 21 goals and grabbed 6 assists, which is obviously 27 goal contributions in those 46 games, which again is not too bad. So why? People, we're getting there now and it's starting to get a little bit warmer. But before we do finish up with his entire footballing CV at the age of 28, let's go ahead and discuss his international career very, very briefly, because we mentioned it earlier on in the video. He was a Nigerian internationalist. Well, he's played 4 games for his country in which he has 1 goal. But aye, people, let's go ahead and finish up his club career by looking at that CV. At the age of 28 years old, he has played 280 games at the highest level. Again, no paying attention to youth league or reserve league. This is just the top flight stats we look at right here on the channel. He's played 280 games in that period, in which he scored 111 goals and has 40 assists to his name, which is of course 151 goal contributions, in 280 games. Means he is of course averaging a goal or an assist every 1.8 matches throughout his career, which is something I could really get beyond, in my personal opinion. That there starts to pick me up when I start seeing we start here. It's always important to look at the entire picture, not just someone's narrative that they're trying to paint. That's why we discuss everything right here in terms of the old channel. But that's it regarding the numbers, ladies and gentlemen, again, at the age of 28. Now, some people might say, or look at this deal and say, why are we trying to sign someone at 28? Why are we trying to say? All I will say is Michael B will obviously address it won't just be youngsters or up-and-coming players with points to prove in that aspect. He wants a wee bit grey in there, and he wants a wee bit more experienced players in terms of the dressing room. And say what you want about the Moreloses or Kents, but they were experienced players. McGregor's, Arfield's, experienced players who's been around the block a few times, and that's something that definitely Big Des, if you Cyriel has done over the last couple seasons. So you're getting someone who's ready to perform right now, not a year or two, not top couple years down the line, someone who could perform right now. And again, for me, looking into this laddie, it wasn't the sexiest thing I've ever seen in terms of, oh my god, he's doing this bits and look at these highlights and look at this and that, but that space who's in there for there and there isn't going to exist for us in the SPFL. The fact that his game is so perfectly suited with backing up against a centre half, throwing him out the wing, creating chances for other. 40 assists in his career for a striker is actually brilliant, ladies and gentlemen, and for me it's just another stitch in the old sweater that Michael Beale's trying to build in his Rangers team, because if you look at exactly what he wants from a striker, whether you like it or not, or whether it's what we want in a striker, it's exactly this guy's profile to a T, people. Back to goal, bringing others in that can create opportunities and grab someone and hold the ball up. It's him, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why I think there's some smoke to this fire. It's the most obvious slam dunk replacement you will ever see. Morelos out, Des in, and for me I can see it working the exact same way, and I don't think we need to drastically change too much in how we play. But again, I'm not just saying he's Morelos 2.0 or anything like, or Morelos this or that, because Morelos when he was at it was absolutely sensational and everything like that in some of his games that he's played, but he also had loads of spells where for me he was a negative in the Rangers team and it frustrated the life out of me. This guy's a professional, turns up, does his job week in and week out, and again he works his arse off when it does get on the park, so I'll give him that credit there and hope to see that in a Rangers shirt if he does come up the road. But that leads us to the last little talking point, ladies and gentlemen, because you might have noticed I mentioned he was signed for €6.5 million just last summer, last August. People, this isn't a free transfer, this isn't buttons. No, there is some negotiations going on apparently between Rangers and his club, and they apparently want close to €6 million for the laddie, ladies and gentlemen. So it's going to be very interesting in that fact, because when you start to add that price tag to the laddie in terms of his output and this and this and that, it does start to make it a little bit of murky water in my opinion. And if this rumour doesn't happen, people, it'll probably be down to the old transfer, because their chairman apparently is very stuck on the old moolah. So aye, this one could come crumbling down, and it might not happen, people, because again they want that value, but negotiations are apparently happening. That's what's been reported by the transfer big guns, people. That's why we're discussing it, because there is something in this and it completely makes sense. But am I as confident as about the other ones I spoke about? No, ladies and gentlemen, simply because of the price tag. So now I hand it over to you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to know your opinion on Big Des, if you will. Do you think he's the exact type of player we need? Again, he fits the profile of what's worked for Beale or what he wants in his team, but do you think he's worth that type of transfer outlay? That would be interesting to know what your opinions are. We did say we need to spend big on a striker. We've picked up free transfer here, free transfer, wee buttons here, wee buttons here. We're saving money for a big striker, people. Is this the guy? It could very well be. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down there in the old comment section below. And as always, if something real happens regarding this football club, we'll discuss it right here on the channel. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. I've been Cyriel 92. All the best and bye-bye.